Since changing the name of the Eclectic Americana Friday morning drive time radio show on January 20th, 1989 to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club, the DJs in the collective have strived to entertain and inform our listeners. Airing from 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific at KZSC 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California, the Bushwhackers usually have 2 interviews a week, each airing for about half an hour. We're not afraid to ask questions or admit that we don't know something, and we don't mind taking deep dives or following a tangent as we get into how sausage is made in local, county, or state politics, or learning about things going on in our community, or discussions with artists. Our interviews are not scripted and are produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange. Press that.
We press multiple things.
Press that. Press this.
Press all the
this.
things right
and
now.
we say, good
Press
morning,
everything.
KZSC.
You're
You're
on
on
the
the air.
Good morning. I love the energy. You're bringing sunshine to the dreary day.
It was crazy driving up here. Golden Voice Gene and I were driving up here, and there was a hole in the fog, and it was thicker fog toward the mountains, but it was clear over campus. It was odd.
Yeah.
So, Assemblymember Pellerin, since last we talked, the governor released the budget, pretty grim in terms of tens of billions of dollars in the hole, but he had all sorts of, dare I say, gimmicks to try and whisk away 10 here and 10 there. What are your thoughts on the budget, and what's the role of the Assembly?
Wow. It's been a whirlwind. We did take some early action last month to reduce the budget deficit by about $17 billion. But, getting that May revise was a bit of a kick in the gut. It's going to be a very difficult budget year. In fact, they're trying to look at it as a 2-year budget cycle right now. And, where the governor has definitely cut significantly into undispersed one-time funding. Recent state administrative costs have been cut by several percentage points. One that is painful is the cut planned Medi-Cal provider rate increases, which we've been hearing from constituents is so dramatically needed. And those were planned for next year. And other health and human services programs are getting cut. And we're very concerned about what's the planned expenditures on housing and homelessness programs. And so definitely, and there's also a lower reliance on our state rainy day funds. So I think that's a smart move to make right now, because we don't want to blow it all in the first bad year. So, there's temporary limits on net operating loss deductions, and most tax credits for medium-sized and larger businesses for up to 3 years will be limited. So we're right now we're in subcommittee mode, and our budget subcommittees are meeting, and the Assembly's budget priorities are to preserve those core programs that help our most vulnerable in the state. We want to protect classroom funding. Proposition 98 is getting bantered about a lot, and we're looking very carefully at the housing and homelessness funding. So we have a lot of work to do in the next few weeks.
What are the health and human services that are being cut so that people can prepare for alternatives?
Well, at this point in time, it's not a final document. So we're looking at everything. But certainly we're hearing about cuts in mental health, which is something that I champion and fight for. So I'm going to be, looking deeper into those. And like I said, the housing and homelessness funding, that those proposals are out there. So the Assembly is going to do our intense work, and we're working with the Senate in the hopes of reaching a joint budget agreement in either late May or early June. And because that balanced budget must be sent to the governor on or before June 15th. So that is our target. So it's not over yet. We're doing our work now. The governor has given us his version. We're now going to work in the Assembly on our version, and the Senate's going to work on its version, and hopefully there'll be a coming together of the minds.
So, Assemblymember Pellerin, just kind of to, in case, there's a lack of understanding on the part of our listenership in terms of how the budget is created and what goes into that, because if I'm being totally honest, it baffles me. Could you talk a little bit about how the governor gets his estimate? Like, what was going into the announcement of the May revise? What made that prediction exist? What numbers were they looking at, and how might that differ from what the Assembly is looking at?
Well, the governor relies heavily on the Department of Finance, and so they get their numbers based on what tax revenues have been coming in. April 15th was the tax deadline. That's why the May revise is May 15th, because
Gotcha.
it gives them the month to look at what revenue is coming in, and then we rely on our legislative analyst office and to get information from them. And we also have an incredible budget committee and budget subcommittees with staff. And then the Speaker's office has an amazing budget analyst, Jason Sisney, and we've been following a lot of his reports and his information that he's been putting out as well. It is complicated. It is complex. It is something I could do full time and still not have the perfect grasp on it. So it really does take an army of budget warriors to come together to figure out this budget.
Right, and we talked with State Senator Laird some months ago about separating, about especially in the role of the governor. When a governor has kind of additional political aspirations, those aspirations can come into play in terms of what kind of information they're presenting, what kind of perspective they're presenting, the timing in terms of like, oh, is it an election year? Is this person vying for another political position? That can kind of, we talked with Senator Laird about how that can come into play into how the governor's presenting information, how politicians are presenting information, because that's a part of the political process in its own way. And I'm curious, does that come into play at all when it comes to forecasting the budget for the year? Is there any kind of, or is it like, with numbers, we don't mess around. This isn't something that can necessarily be impacted by how the governor wants us to feel about this information as it's presented. Is that the kind of, like, is it affected by that kind of like, well, how are people going to feel about this announcement?
Yeah, well, I think from the Department of Finance and Legislative Analyst Office, it's all about the pure data. These are the facts. Here's the reality. Do with it as you will.
Right.
And then you get the politicians involved, and they may want to couch it certain ways. They'll do some creative shifting. The headlines of the budget deficit are out there, and it's really just a reference point. They don't actually affect the budget balancing process in and of themselves. I mean, the budget's balanced on the projected revenues and actual expenditure decisions that are embedded in the annual budget. And, the legislature chooses the revenue estimate included in the annual budget, which typically is what's provided to them in the May revision. So it's complicated. There's so many people impacted by this, and certainly the budget I look at as a reflection of our values. And this is an extremely tough budget year. There's going to be a lot of pain everywhere, but we're also looking outward to a structural budget deficit in future years, and that's another big piece that has to be addressed.
Speaking of pain, when we spoke a month ago, we were talking about electricity rates in California. Alert listener Eric sent us some questions for you and followed up by sending me an article published in the San Francisco Chronicle by former California Public Utilities Commission, that's the CPUC president, Loretta Lynch. The article is entitled, "Here's the Real Reason PG&E Rates Are Skyrocketing in California."
It says California approves a big controversial change to electricity bills, and here are the details.
California now holds the ignominious prize for the highest electricity rates in the nation, except Hawaii. How did we get into this predicament?
Hawaii. So, Golden Voice Gene, are the rates high in Hawaii?
Well, they are high. However, the county of Kauai is solar. Just so you know, the commission enjoys limited scrutiny by the courts. decisions made by other state agencies can be appealed to the Superior Court, but only an appellate court can hear commission appeals, and taking that case is discretionary. This limited judicial review means that the Public Utilities Commission essentially answers to the governor alone.
So Loretta Lynch says it's up to the state legislature, and here's where you come in, Gail, to inject sanity into the regulatory system and protect California families and businesses from ruinous, undeserved rate increases. And that brings us to AB 1999, AB 2054, and SB 938. Where do you want to start, Assemblymember Pellerin?
Let's start with 1999. That's the one that is best on my mind right now. Yeah. So and let me just do a shout out to Loretta Lynch. I've known Loretta for several years, and when I got elected to the state assembly, she was one of the people I called to try to learn as much as she knows about utility rates and rate setting. She is phenomenal and a great resource for me personally, and I think worked with our group that was trying to combat these skyrocketing PG&E costs. The bottom line is AB 1999 by Jackie Irwin was held in appropriations yesterday when it was on the suspense file. So for all intents and purposes, that vehicle is dead.
Oh.
Now, the reason I say it that way is just because the bill is dead, the idea is not. And so our working group is continuing to work at ways that we can tap the PG, the flat rate. We need to build in equity. And I think that was the concern of many of my colleagues. The bill, when it was up for a vote yesterday, it only had 2 aye votes, and I was one of them. And but some of my colleagues are concerned about equity issues because people in Santa Cruz look outside our windows today. It's foggy, it's cool. I don't need an air conditioner on, but if I were in Sacramento or I were in the Central Valley, it might be getting up over 100, and then you're having to turn your power on to get that cool air so you can function and live in your home. So we also have the impact of what's the impact on people who can afford putting solar on their house that don't need to pay as high of a rate as people who can't afford to put solar. So there's a lot of equity issues, but the bottom line is that PG&E has got skyrocketing profits. We need to call them into check, and so we're continuing our work on these ideas.
When you say it's dead, so there was a money component associated with this bill, so it had to go to appropriations, and in order for it to live, it had to get out of appropriations. And what you're saying is it died there.
Yeah.
So why did it die there?
Well, a lot of bills died.
Right.
And so I think it's a signal to us that we need to work harder with our colleagues and the hopes of coming up with a better solution. And there's still opportunity to put this in a budget trailer bill, but we have work to do with our colleagues to deal with, like I said, some of those equity issues.
What about AB 2054 to stop the revolving door of former commissioners moving to jobs with the utilities?
So that bill did pass appropriations yesterday. So that one is still moving, and so we're going to be looking into that as well. And then I know the chair of our utility committee, Connie Petrie Norris, also has several, I think, bills still moving on PUC reform. So it's not over yet, is the bottom line. And we still have time to set up some better guardrails and controls on basically what I see. The PG&E has a limitless credit card they can use anytime for anything, and we need to call that into check.
Well, it's from reading Loretta Lynch's article, it sounds like the CPUC basically rubber stamped and preemptively approved these massive transfers of money and rate increases to PG&E with minimal oversight. So Loretta Lynch's article says it's up to the legislature. I'm sorry to hear that AB 1999 is dead. We're all going to see our utility bills go up. And I guess we've got to wait until the next legislative session?
Well, no, and that's why, I'm a hopeful person. And there's still bills moving. There's still opportunity for amendments. There's still budget trailer bills. And so our work is not done. But I do believe the presence of 1999 really got the PUC kind of thinking. And so I think we are making some progress and letting them know that we are not going to give up on this. We're watching and we're monitoring, and we're going to continue to fight for our consumers for more reasonable rates on their energy.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to 28th District State Assembly Member Gail Pellerin. You're listening to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. My name's Kalamity Kyle.
I'm Dangerous Dan.
Golden Voice Gene.
Chaos.
If you've got any questions that you would like us to ask Assembly Member Pellerin, you can text us at 831-459-4036. Please let us know.
And I have a question. So PG&E is the for lack of a more fitting word, monopoly that runs the energy and gets money for the energy that goes into the homes of many of the Californians here. Oh, I think I'm too close to you. How, with all of this renewable energy that we're getting, is it possible to have energy be free in the future and have people just pay for the solar panels to be installed or the repairs for the companies that need to make repairs to those services, rather than having electricity constantly be run by these conglomerate companies? I don't know what's going on with my headphones.
Yeah.
Like Nikolai Tesla originally intended.
No, excellent question. It would certainly be nice. And PG&E is an investor-owned utility, so they have people who invest in their company and want to see a profit. And I do not believe that's the best model for utilities. And yes, the state is making huge advances in clean energy sources that are sustainable, and we definitely want to get more green, but for less green because it's costing a lot. I know there's a group that's working very intently on offshore wind, which is a phenomenal energy source. I know back east they're developing a lot, and in other countries they've been developing offshore wind, and so that is being, we got a committee on it. We've got a Women in Wind Energy group that's been formed. It's really a huge focus, along with solar and other clean energy sources that we're trying to develop.
Assembly Member Pellerin, do you have?
Oh yeah, well, so listener Eric just texted and asked asked us to ask you about how the high cost of electricity disincentivizes a move towards electrification, which I think is interesting. And I wanted to ask you, Gail, about the relationship between those two, between the effort to move off of fossil fuels, move towards in the direction of solar, perhaps, or wind, and the current situation with AB 199 and PG&E.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly consumers don't like to be punished for doing the right thing. I mean, if I, electrify my home and get rid of my fossil fuel, gas stoves and heater and water pump and water heater and convert to electricity, only to find that my bills skyrocket and I'm not saving any money, that's frustrating, because consumer, you did the right thing. You did what we needed to do, and now we're continuing to gouge you with monthly bills that you can't afford, that put you in a position of having to decide about, whether I'm going to use my electricity or put food on my table. So, and a lot of this is driven by climate. Our climate is changing, and this weather whiplash we've been having here is really frustrating. And so we have definitely a lot of work to do here, and because we want to incentivize clean energy. We want to incentivize conservation as well. We don't want people to just use as much energy as they want and waste things and not pay accordingly. So I think it's important to have our energy rates based on usage. But we, like I said, we also need to build the equity pieces in there as well.
So Assemblymember Pellerin, the state billions of dollars in the hole, electricity rates skyrocketing, AB 1999 dead in appropriations yesterday. Let's turn our attention to a subject near and dear to our listeners here in the Monterey Bay, and that is AB 1850, your bill to declare the banana slug the official state slug.
See, we got to have fun in here, too. I know. Otherwise, it's just too dreary. Yes, we had great success with our banana slug bill in the state assembly, garnering only one no vote from an assembly member who just doesn't like bananas. So he was never going to live that one down because I'm going to be bringing him a banana all the time.
Do they know that bananas and banana slugs are two separate things?
It didn't matter. Just the mere mention of the word banana sent him into an anxiety. So
Wow. Pay attention, voters.
Trigger.
We can't have this kind of representation in our students.
Go on, Assemblymember Pellerin.
We need bananas.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a banana hater. But the bill's out of the assembly. It's in Senate Government Organization. We have a hearing set for May 28th. And also today, I get to spend some time with the winners of our Banana Slug art contest here in Santa Cruz.
Very
We're
good.
going to share a dessert with them and celebrate their beautiful art that is on display in our office. And I think it so inspired one classroom that the whole classroom did a study of the banana slug and did art of the banana slug, and the whole classroom is decorated in banana slugs. So it's taken off. That banana slug is near and dear to a lot of our hearts, and is such an essential piece of our ecosystem in our redwood forest, and people are learning about it, and we're elevating its stature here in the state of California.
And I'm going to use it as a vehicle to help me learn how the legislature works. You said it passed out of the assembly with one no vote, and it has gone to, you said, government organization.
Yes.
Is that a committee in the Senate?
That's a committee in the Senate. We have one in the Assembly as well.
Okay, so it goes to committee in the Senate, and then it gets out of committee, and it goes to the Senate floor.
That's the hope.
Okay.
Something tells me that'll
I've
go
got
well.
John Laird over there, and he's a co-author, so he's going to help us carry it through the Senate and get it to the governor's desk and hopefully sign into law.
And then hopefully we will have a state slug. Do they have slugs in Kauai, Golden Voice Gene?
They do not.
No.
They have. Oh wait, they do. They have
They
some
don't
very.
have little like brown morning slugs or anything.
No,
like
they
that?
have big, beautiful shell slugs.
Oh, that's it. That's nice.
Snails.
Yeah.
Snails.
So here's a
Snails.
fun
You're
fact.
talking about
My
snails.
Yes.
chief consultant in
They're
the
in the
elections
same
committee.
family.
Hang on. You say that again, Assemblymember Pellerin?
Sir, my chief consultant in the elections committee, when he lived in Hawaii as a young person, he lobbied his state legislature to name, and I'll need help with this, the humu humu unu unu apu apa
You
as
got
the
it.
state fish.
Huma huma
Yes.
nuka nuka apawao.
Yes.
There you go.
A trigger fish.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that was work that he did as a young person. So he was super excited about this bill and being a little bit involved with it now because he did that work when he was a young person and learned a lot about the legislative process and doing that.
And bringing that experience to bear to help the state of California, what would be the fifth largest economy in the world if we were an independent nation, or third, we'd be ginormous.
It'd be ginormous.
We can have an official state slug. Well,
think we should.
Assemblymember Pellerin, we're definitely looking forward to that. We've got the KPFA News headlines coming up in, about 4 or 5 minutes. This is KZSE Santa Cruz, the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. We're talking to our California State Assemblymember Gail Pellerin. I'm Dangerous Dan.
I'm Kalamity Kyle.
Golden Voice Gene.
And chaos.
And so, Gail Pellerin, in the last few minutes that we have together, could you tell us a little bit about what it means to be in committee mode right now? How long will you be in committee mode? What's the next step after this slightly significant and slightly intense May revise?
Well, subcommittee mode, but also huge work to do in our House. So our House of Origin deadline is May 24th.
Gotcha.
So the Assembly currently has 553 bills that we have to consider and by May 24th. So we have many days of session this next week, in addition to our budget subcommittee work that we're going to be doing.
So the House of Origin is the house that the bill starts in. So we talked about AB 1999. That's
Yes.
Assembly Bill 1999. So it originates in the Assembly. SB 938, a bill that would stop ratepayers from paying for utility lobbying and advertising, originates in the Senate.
Senate bill.
So those are the houses of origin, and all of the bills have to be out of the House of Origin. You said by next Friday?
By May 24th.
Gotcha. I believe that is next. I think that is next.
Next
My math is
Friday.
right.
Yep. You have a week.
Yeah, next Friday. Yes, next week. This next week coming up is going to be intense, busy 4 days, and we'll be in session most likely on the 24th to finish up this important work.
Does every bill get addressed individually, or can you lump them together and save some time?
We do have a consent calendar. Currently, we've got, out of our total 553 bills, 33 are on consent.
Well, that leaves
But I think
520.
three are Senate bills too, which we don't need to rush out. But yeah, we've got a pretty big load.
Is this the busiest time of the year typically in the Assembly?
This is a busy time of year. We will do a repeat of this at the end of session when we have all those final hearings on all the Senate bills. What's interesting about that is that, the Senate is half our size, so they typically have half the bill load. So over in the Senate right now, there's what do they have? They have 365 bills in the Senate that they're trying to move out. So yeah.
With 553 bills that have to be addressed by next Friday, but you're in subcommittee mode, when do you go to floor mode?
Well, I'm not on a subcommittee, so I don't have to balance that. But there will be time carved out for the subcommittees, probably intense sessions of floor where we get a lot of work done and several hours, and then we'll have breaks to allow the subcommittees to meet to do their work.
Well, Assemblymember Pellerin, thank you so much for joining us monthly here on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club to talk about how sausage is made in Sacramento.
Yes.
Yeah.
We wish you luck.
Or slug.
Yeah, true that.
Thank you, Gail.
And
Yeah,
a shout out to the Giant Dipper on their 100th anniversary celebration tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you. I thank you for remembering that. The Giant Dipper hitting 100 years old celebration tonight. Thank you, Assemblymember Pellerin.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you. Make it a great month. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to a podcast from an interview on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club on KZSC 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California. This interview has been produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange. KZSC is a student-run college and community non-commercial educational radio station broadcasting from the UC Santa Cruz campus. You can stream KZSC online at kzsc.org. Thanks for listening.